Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this SAIF webinar. Today, we're looking at pay-per-click, and I just want to go back and reflect upon the SAIF digital program that started a number of years ago, where we wanted to address SAIF members in digital marketing, and that includes pay-per-click, SEO, etc. But today, I'm joined by Laura from Your Business Angels. Hi, Laura, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good. A bit hot and sweaty over here, I'm afraid, but yeah, all good, thank you.
I think that's all of us, definitely is. So today we're looking at benchmarking your funeral home's online visibility. You're going to be touching on a number of subjects within that, and you've got an example, I believe, based in Leicester to show exactly what you mean. So Laura, I'll let you take it from here, and we'll come back for questions at the end.
Thanks, Declan. That's really kind. I've got two screens here going, so apologies if I'm kind of looking around. But yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Laura Moxham from Your Business Angels, and today we're going to be diving into a topic that I think's often overlooked in the funeral sector: online visibility. It can be a little bit scary and a bit sort of concerning, but don't worry, we're here to help. Because it's one of the most powerful ways that families can actually find you when they need you most. And I completely understand that a large part of your business comes down to your own reputation that you've built and your community presence and, you know, word of mouth, because that really matters. You've spent years building that trust and it's invaluable. But the way that people are searching is changing over the generations. You know, more and more families are turning to Google, especially if, say, they're new to the area, it's out of hours, or, you know, they're not sure really where to start. And if you're not showing up online, you're simply not in the running. So let's just think about a quick analogy. Now, I love a cup of coffee, so I'm going to give you a coffee analogy. So imagine you're walking down your local high street. You're looking for a coffee shop to go into. And you know that there's a lovely independent coffee shop tucked away. You've got great coffee, you know, friendly faces. They've been there for years. You've heard of them, and lots of your mates have been there. But just ahead of you, there's a brand new, shiny coffee chain, you know, with big signage, eye-catching window displays, and even some people outside maybe handing out vouchers, something like that. Now, even if the independent cafe makes the best coffee in town, if people don't see them, they just don't go in. So really, that's what's happening on the online in the funeral sector. Families are searching for, let's say, funeral director near me, and often a time when they're quite overwhelmed and looking for somebody who's credible, local, and can really help them in that time, you know, when they need it most. And if you're not visible at that moment, chances are you're just not going to get that phone call, that inquiry. So for today, I know that we did a session in January and we talked a lot about various aspects of Google Ads. But what I thought for today's session is if we look at a particular town and we carried out a study of that town, of Leicester, to look at it from an online perspective, as if you're searching for a funeral director. So it's taking that example town and goes through what's happening, who's showing up, what's working, and where there's opportunity to improve. So my goal is that you leave this session with some practical steps, and I really want you thinking about your funeral home's you know, online presence. We want to make sure that you know how yours will be found and when it matters most to local families. So today you will learn, you know, well, my plan is that I want you to go away with actionable items. And things to do, because if you're not that visible locally online, you're going to learn things so that you are, and if you are, we'll be able to help tweak so that you're getting better. So just look at today like a session that going to the gym. If you go to the gym, we're doing reps together so that we can be stronger. So if you're serious about your online visibility in the local community, hopefully this is going to be a great session for you. So we're going to cover things like the top 3 reasons why funeral homes might not be showing up when families need you most, what's working right now, how you can potentially replicate it or make it better, how to appear more often in the local searches, the difference between Google Ads and SEO, search engine optimization, and how independents can really potentially sort of muscle in on the big chains. And we've actually got a bit of a bonus gift for you, because during this session, you're going to learn about Leicester and the local advertisers there, and how they can turn up better. But what we also wanted to do was help you further off the back of this webinar about an exact exercise on your local town. So Megan and my team will put a link up in a second. And what it means is that we can run this local sort of visibility review for your town. And what we'll be able to do is you'll be able to book in a call with Scott in my team. He's an incredible guy, and he's very enthusiastic and upbeat. So if you book in a slot, then bring a coffee. But basically what we'll do for your particular local town is run this report, go through all the findings, and he'll look at your business in your town with the live data. So it's a bit like a school report for your business. So why does this matter to you? Well, let's talk about that. So firstly, families are searching online first. You know, about 93% of people are searching online on Google. And around about 70% of those clicks go to the top 3 results. And that's either the paid ads or maybe the map listings. And if you're not visible, you're not going to be able to get that, you know, that family that's looking. Secondly, the important thing is that there's big chains out there, and they seem to be dominating, and we're constantly seeing national providers like Co-op or Fairwill and Dignity, and they are appearing in multiple spots, so either paid or the map listings. But there's good news: independents can absolutely compete, or, you know, get that visibility. You've got the personal service, you've got the local reputation and the trust. And with the right kind of setup, you can take back that visibility and get families to see you guys. So also to be aware that, like I mentioned earlier, the world is changing, and what families did generations ago by asking families, that's kind of, you know, adjusting. They're looking online. They are moving away from their families, where they need to search online for funeral directors, and they're researching brands too. But all of this is about visibility, so that it drives inquiries to your business. It allows more families to be able to see you and be more visible. And we know that often families are making quite quick decisions under sort of emotional pressure, and they click on what they see. So if you're not visible, then no matter how great your service is, they may not see you. So that's why today's important to many of you. So your business angels, excuse me while I take a quick slurp. You might be wondering why you should listen to us. Who is this YBA, Your Business Angels crowd? Well, we've been working with funeral directors to help them improve their online visibility and get found by more families. And it actually started with one funeral director, because we've got a number of different clients that we work with, but we worked with a funeral director, and he was really, really pleased with the results. And actually he wants to be unnamed because he doesn't want other people to know about it. But basically his inquiries went up, and so on that basis I had a chat with Deck to say, look, it would be great if we can add value to members by helping them with their online presence. We can help share knowledge and expertise. So really that's what today is all about. Those members that are ambitious to want to be more visible, to be able to have that in the local community. So if that's you, you're absolutely in the right place. We're here to help. We're friendly, no techie jargon. So yeah, we know your time is really stretched, and you're focusing on taking care of families. So that's why we're hopefully here to help if you, on the Google Ads side of things for you. Just wanted to also share a quick story about one of the funeral directors that we work with, John Weir Funeral Directors, based in Kent. You may know John. When he first came to us, he was running Google Ads through another agency based in America, actually, but he wasn't convinced at what they were achieving. So like other funeral directors that we speak to, he wasn't really sure if the digital marketing was delivering him, and what was actually happening with these clicks, if it was actually generating real results. And what they really wanted to see was, what was happening, and have confidence in their marketing. And they wanted more families to get in touch, more booked funerals. So what we did was we did a full audit of their campaigns, and actually found a number of key issues that was meaning that they weren't actually getting the results that they were hoping for. So their ads were targeted at some of the wrong areas, their keywords were quite broad, and the messaging just wasn't attracting those clicks. You know, it didn't just affect who they were as a trusted family, it was that they weren't being seen and reflected in the local community. So what we did was we rebuilt the campaigns to focus on the local targeting and the stronger messaging around trust and support, and we fixed their tracking so that they could, you know, really sort of measure those results. So yeah, the results were great. He went from sort of 10 inquiries up to around 30 in the peak and the seasonal peak earlier in the year. But really the clicks were up, and those inquiries turned into booked funerals. And that's the kind of results that we love, not just traffic or more data, but a real impact for families and for confidence in your business in the local area. And the truth is, you know, this isn't unique to John Weir. When campaigns are set up properly and monitored, these kind of improvements can be achievable. So just give me a little bit of a flavour of where you are actually, if that's okay. We're going to put a little poll up here. I'd like to know, you know, you guys are busy, I know you are. So what brings you here? There's a few options here. So either you want more families to find you online, not sure how. Is it that you're doing, you know, enough? How do you compare to others? You want to see how you're doing against others, or really just curious, just thought, I'll see what that's all about. So let us know sort of where you're at. That would be really helpful. Ooh, it's a hot thing between number 1 and number 2, wanting more families to find you online, and also to compare against others. So it's quite even actually. So, okay, so we're looking at more about wanting to compare to others. So it'll be really good, this session today, around taking Leicester and looking at those and understanding, well, how does that apply to your business? And obviously the link that Megan has put in there, we can take that one stage further off the back of this webinar and actually do that for your business, but I'll tell you more about that later. So also, if you can move to the next question, Angela, that would be great. So my next question is, tell me who's actually doing Google Ads, just so I can get a flavour. There's a sort of a yes, no, or unsure. It's funny, some people aren't actually sure if they're running it. One of the quick ways to be able to find that out is, of course, looking at your bank direct debits to see if the money is coming out on a regular basis to Google, or whether the activities that you're doing is the natural listings, not the ads. Okay. Unsure. Well, if you're unsure, that's how you can do it. You can find out by looking to see if there's any payment that goes through to through to Google Ads. 50% aren't, and 20% are. So whatever your journey, don't worry, because you're going to take away some real practical things that even if you're not doing Google Ads, you will be able to apply some of those things, some of those learnings. And if you aren't, then sorry, if you are, then you're going to be able to take away some things to apply to your business, to your Google Ads. If you aren't, then you can have a look at it and think, okay, well, actually, we could do some things here, maybe not Google Ads, maybe Google Ads. So let's look, if we go back to the presentation, thank you. So why Google Ads anyway? Why should you care about your online visibility, and in particular Google Ads? So one of the main advantages of Google Ads is its ability to get your funeral homes right to the top of the search results when people are searching, actively looking for your services. So it's perfect for funeral directors who want to connect with more families searching for their support. So if you imagine someone types into Google funeral services near me, or funeral directors Doncaster into Google, with a really good Google Ads campaign set up, and it's got to be set up right, your business should appear prominently at the top in the search results. And you know, without these, the ideal prospects will, you know, go to those who are. So a targeted Google Ads strategy means that families in your community can find you more easily when they need you most. So they're there, they've kind of you know, in that emotional scenario, and you know, they will turn to Google to type into you know, to find a local funeral director. So if we go back to my coffee shop, let's bring this to life again with a coffee shop analogy that we talked about. So imagine you're walking down the street again. On one side, there's a coffee shop with a chalkboard saying no queues, fast service. And just across the road, there's another cafe that quickly updates the sign saying buy one, get one free. Now, as a prospect searching for good coffee, which one grabs your attention? You're probably tempted by, apologies, by the deal. So the point here is both shops are reacting to try and win your attention. And that's exactly like Google Ads. The question becomes, like, what can you do to make your ads stand out? So that's whether it's a stronger message, a better offer, or like a clearer call to action. Your goal is to be the best people that choose the coffee or chooses the coffee, or in your case, click on your ad and call you. So I love this quote from Bananarama, because it ain't what you do, it's the way you do it that gets results. So it's so true, especially in digital marketing. You might think that the big players are unbeatable, you know, they've got huge budgets. But the truth is that not having the biggest budget, it doesn't have to be that way. It's about what you have in the right, you know, getting it set up in the right way. So let's get into it. Let's look at this data. So to give you a real world view of what's actually happening in Google, we used some tools that mimic what families see online. It runs hundreds of local searches at rapid speeds and pulls up some real-time data showing, you know, who's appearing, who's showing in the maps listing, and how often. So this gives us a clear snapshot of the online landscape, and you know, some really powerful insights. I'd argue that some of these insights give you a distinct competitive advantage. So for this session, we focused on Leicester. It's a great example because it gives us a mix of independents and local chains that are in that area. It's not too big that it distorts the results, like, for example, London, and not too small to be, you know, uncompetitive. So we ran the searches along the keywords of funeral services, funeral directors near me. And this gives us a clear view of what people are actually seeing when they search. But here's the thing, it's just one town, and really what makes a difference is looking in your area. So yeah, I mentioned earlier that we'll run this report for your town, and we can give you a snapshot of what's happening in your local community. So we'll be able to hold the mirror up and show you exactly where you stand and who's appearing ahead of you, what quick wins you've got. So if you'd like that, then by all means, just click on that link in the chat. Now, just to show you the difference between the ads and the map listings and SEO, you'll see on the screen you've got the ads in the top box. That's where, when somebody types in, you know, funeral services near me, those are the 3 or 4 ads that hit up at the top. Now, when somebody clicks on that ad and goes through, that will take them to your website, and that is when you pay Google. The other element next underneath is the maps. You can have ads in there. That is part of the Google Ads element as well, but also it's the organic listing of your Google business profile. Then the last element is the organic listings of your website there as well. So the results, this is what we saw. So there was 12 advertisers. I don't know if that shocks you as a big number, a small number, but there's 12 advertisers that came up in that period advertising in the area. So we found 55 pieces of ad copy. So that's, you know, local family run, call us 24/7, care when you need it most. You know, those the ads. We had 7 businesses in the maps. And there was obviously no shopping ads and no local service ads. That's something new from Google Ads, but it's not in this particular sector. So we found that 12% of the advertisers were using what's called ad extensions. More on that later, but effectively it gives you more real estate to your ad, and it pushes your ad and makes it bigger gives you more space and pushes the other advertisers sort of further down and the organic listings further down. So what do these results mean? Well, really it means that there's a busy space dominated by these search ads and the map listings. So let's now have a look at who's advertising. So the chart shows the most active advertisers in Leicester's Google Ads space for funeral services. So it's very much dominated in this particular town by the national brands. So Farewell, the Funeral Market, Co-op and Dignity, all of whom are running multiple ads. So, you know, we're seeing limited independents. We do see KM Funerals, they're active, but half as visible as the bigger players. So this means that actually there's room for local businesses to stand out, especially with more like focused targeting and, you know, personalized ad messages. So let's break that down even further so that you can see what they're doing and how you can find the gap to apply to your business. But also not all towns are the same. So what I've done is I've just done a quick comparison with another one. So you can see that there's a difference between the online landscape, which is against Colchester. So what's really interesting here is when we compare Leicester and Colchester is how the competitive landscape shifts from town to town. So in Leicester, or city to city, we saw Farewell dominating the space in Leicester, followed closely by the Funeral Market and Co-op. But in Colchester, you've got John Smith Funerals, independent funerals were much more visible, and Colchester had fewer advertisers, overall 9, but more independents. Also, what stood out is that more of them are using ad extensions. So it just seems like this, you know, this particular area is slightly more advanced in their understanding of Google Ads and how to use it, giving them really a stronger presence in the results that we've seen here. You know, that ad extension gives them a better click-through rate. So the ad extensions mean that our ad's a little bit bigger, so therefore more people see it and they click on it, which is, you know, a really smart move and something we'll touch on a little bit later. Another key difference is Colchester had actually just 3 for some reason that came up in the organic map listings, and this really wasn't clear in Leicester's. In Leicester's there were many more. So what does this show us? Well, it shows that every town or area is its own battlefield. It's not like Google Ads is the same for everywhere. You know, you need to have a look at your local area to understand who's there, what's going on, where you need to step up in order to get that visibility. And as we've shown in Colchester, some of the independents are stepping up and competing against some of these bigger brands. But you know, the main thing is that you're not visible. If you're not visible, you're missing out, especially if others in your area are active. So this is why local review is really valuable and helpful, because it works out in one town what might be good is completely different in the next. So why might you not be found? So let's look at why that might be. Even when, you know, you're offering outstanding service to the community, why might you not be found? Well, firstly, some funeral directors aren't doing ads, which we've shown in our questions, or the campaigns just haven't been set up accurately, and it therefore makes it a lot harder for people to be able to find you. Secondly, if you're not advertising, you then won't be in potentially that top spot on the map listing. So we're missing an opportunity there. And finally, your Google business profile, which is the map listing, things like, you know, this is what needs to be updated regularly with reviews, with images, with contact details. That's a big part of the visibility. So even small improvements there can make a big difference. If your listing hasn't been touched in months, then Google will just sort of push it down the page on those maps. So that's the reason that you may not be seen. So if we then look at keywords, so let's have a look at actually, these are the keywords that we put into the review. Because that's, you know, that it's not rocket science what people type into Google. It's you know, this in their sort of hour of need and their time, this is the sorts of things that they're typing in. So the most searched term was funeral services, followed closely by funeral services near me. and they're broad, highly used phrases, and they're generated the highest number of paid ads. But what's really interesting is that slightly more specific phrases like funeral directors near me had a strong search volume. So but actually funeral director wasn't as popular. So what it tells us on these keywords is that the phrase near me, you know, people want things local, really matters. Also, that map listings are shown up for actually each of those keywords. So all of the map listings you see on the far right hand column 15, even those ones that aren't advertising, they're in the maps there. So just reinforces how important your business profile is. Okay, so we've looked at the keywords, and then let's look at the ads. So these are some of the real examples that are coming up in the ads that families see when they're searching, and these obviously are for Leicester. So firstly, nearly all of them lead with something local, with headlines like, you know, local funeral directors, funeral arrangements in Leicester. And that makes sense because, like we said about the keywords, families are looking for, you know, searching locally, and these businesses are showing, you know, they're nearby and really need to, they're ready to help. The second thing is that some ads are giving price information. So funerals from only 1,145. You know, and that's something that they chose to put in there, which is fine. I'll come on to that in a minute. But also the other thing that's clear in these ads is they put in some of the calls to action, which is important. So it prompts people to take the next step, which sounds crazy, but, you know, it's called signaling. And so we want to signal people to do something. So there's lots of mentions of call us today, 24 hours, 24/7 customer service. With the call to actions, other things like contact us today, visit in person. You know, they're giving people clear next steps, you know, whether they're ready to call at that point or just browsing. And the other thing is about credibility and the, you know, the referencing of reviews and ratings. So that adds real kind of social proof. So what can we take from these ads? Well, we know that they're dominated by many of the national players. But what we can take from them is it's showing the local relevance. You know, they're trying to get across pricing clarity, emotional reassurance, you know, call to actions, all that sort of thing. But there's nothing here that the independents can't do as well, if not better. So it's this kind of messaging that we need to shape and make sure that actually, you know, more families are confident in you know, clicking on your ad as opposed to one of the bigger nationals. So identifying what makes you different is important, and we'll get to that next as well. What we did find in many of the ads is the cost. So what we do see a lot of is the cost in pricing of the ads, and it can really vary. And again, you know, this is a very localized strategy, because if we do a search locally, we need to see who's saying about the pricing. And if they are, then you need to adjust what you're going to do. It doesn't mean that you have to put in your pricing. What it means, going back to that shopping, you know, the coffee shop analogy, is it doesn't have to be about price. It can be about, you know, just something that you do differently, something that makes you stand out. So we'll get on to that in a minute, but many of them do put pricing on there. So how can we beat the ads? So we've just seen the big players like Co-op and Farewell, and you know, and to be honest, most of them look quite the same. They lead on price. They say they're open 24/7 and things like, you know, we're here to help. It feels a little bit generic. But the good news is, like I said a little while ago, the good news is that independents have a real chance to stand out. You don't need to have a, you know, huge budget. You just need to think about, well, what makes you different? How can we stand out? How can we be different, you know, with a slightly smarter message? So firstly, we can lead with emotion, not just information. So instead of arrange a funeral, try, you know, you're not alone. We're here when it matters most, you know, making that small emotional shift when families are, you know, are in their need. Secondly, be proud to be local. Big chains say nationwide. You can say, supporting families in Harpenden for 40 years. That builds, instant trust, really leaning into that. And the third thing is about clear and strong call to action. So call us today, call now and speak to Sally, somebody local, not a call center potentially. There's things that we try and make the gap between the bigger brands to the local independents. And finally, use the ad extensions, adding in, I'll show these in a little while, but add in the reviews, add in a callback form, because as we've seen, a large proportion of them aren't using these ad extensions, and it's, it's free space to make your ad bigger and more sort of clickable. So bottom line is, the chains are potentially relying on size. You've got something stronger. You're about reputation, you're about your local roots, so it's about using that to your advantage. So what could they look like? And as you'll see here in the ad we've drafted, shows a local telephone number. That's really important, is showing that, because then people know that it's a local company. The reviews, having those reviews in there, stating the local town, just putting in the name of the local town, 85 years of experience, adding in the address. These are all the things that you can do to your advantage that are really going to earn that click, make you stand out to be different and reliable with years of experience. So let's have a look at these ad extensions. So it's one of the easiest wins when it comes to improving online visibility is, putting in your ad extensions. These are literally just for the Google ads. So in the Leicester review, 12% of advertisers were using them, therefore 88% of them aren't, and that's real valuable real estate. So I've just put in here an example of Austin's. They do a great job of doing this. So it includes links like cremation funeral services, contact us, 5-star funeral director near you. That's what an extension looks like. And the beauty is that it doesn't cost you any extra, because Google actually, it rewards you for using them because it makes your ad a bit more visible. It has more click options and more space on the page, so it looks bigger, really. And I guess, it's like being given a full page ad, and most businesses only really use the top third. So the huge advantage is that Google is more likely to place your ad higher if it's got this extension. So if you're running Google Ads right now, just make sure that it's part of your setup. It's something within the platform, and you can get those set up. So let's have a look at another aspect. So Google Ads allows you to set parameters in your Google Ads, which means that your ads will be shown to people in your local area. It ensures that your budget is really focused, and those people that require your services. And you can customize the radius of your ads to target that local specific town or postcodes, wherever you want to be visible. And also you can exclude areas that you don't want to target as well. And by focusing on this targeting, it just makes that your ad spend is much more efficient. And also where people have moved into the area or moved out, that's why targeting and using these aspects within your Google Ads account is important. Let's have a quick look at Google Business Profile. It's one of them, a really strong, powerful tool, Google Business Profile, or GBP. If you want to look up in or appear in the local map listings, this is where it starts. And the good news is that a few tweaks can really make a difference. So I've just put on there a few examples. So ad photos, your shop front or inside your branch, or your vehicles, your team, if that's appropriate. Because what it does, it builds trust and people who recognize it because they've driven down that street, and it helps families feel really more comfortable to reach out. Next is to think about collecting reviews. So Google rewards businesses by interacting with their customers and helps families feel reassured. And so adding some reviews where you can is very, very helpful. And this is all what I call Google juice, you know, keeping Google happy, regularly updating it. You can use some of the keywords in your name description. So, for example, instead of just using, you know, Smith and Sons, it would be Smith and Sons Funeral Directors York, for example. That can really help to help with the locality. So make sure you've chosen the right service categories, so like funeral homes or cremation services, because if they aren't set up correctly, you'll be missing out on visibility. So there's categories that you get to choose. And finally, you know, post regularly, even, you know, once a week if it's possible, once a fortnight, just, you know, a photo or a seasonal message or a short post about your services, potentially a tip or something that's happening in the local area. What this does is it gives Google your profile. It shows that it's active and relevant, and that you can, you know, help to push up the maps. All of these are free quick wins. You know, this isn't anything to do with the Google Ads account, although if you've got Google Ads and you can have your ads put in the maps as well, it's a sponsored. So all of this kind of Google juice, as I call it, really helps to get your visibility higher. So going back to Google Ads and what the kind of the steps are. So there's 5 essential things to think about here when we're looking about getting Google Ads set up correctly. So firstly is getting the tracking right. So this is like the foundations, because without it, it's like a chocolate fire guard. You don't know if it's working or not. You know, Google Ads is not just about clicks. We need to know how many people have phoned you up from clicking on your ad, how many people have filled out the form, because if you don't if you don't measure it, then it can't be improved. And Google is very, very much about data. So we need to get conversion tracking. All sounds a bit techie, but conversion tracking set up. It's like a one-off thing that needs to be done to track when somebody clicks on your ad and comes to your website and either calls you up or fills out the form. Those 2 actions are tracked in your Google Ads account. Secondly, it's about targeting the right people, and this means bidding on the right search terms. You know, and we looked at, you know, the difference in some of those search terms, focusing only on your local area as well. And you can actually filter by age or time of day, you know, things like that. So that's some of the targeting. Then you've got the messaging, and we looked at this when somebody searches for the local funeral director. Your ads need to be really clear, show that you're different, show that you're local, etc. Then the 4th bit there is about the realistic budget. You know, we're not talking about thousands, but you need to have enough to be able to test properly and, you know, give Google enough to work with so that you're found locally. And lastly, about time. You know, Google Ads is not just a plug and play, stick it on, it works. You know, you need a fair amount of time to get it working and fine-tuning your campaign with really good sort of optimizations. So some of the key takeaways from today. So, you know, before I wrap up, I just wanted to highlight these. So firstly, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it is about visibility. Visibility matters. You know, when you show up online, more families hopefully will be able to find you in that need, because the opportunity is there for you to be able to use this, you know, and be up there on Google. So that visibility means, you know, more inquiries, more families are helped in the local area. Secondly, yes, we know that we're dominated very much by the national brands, but that really doesn't mean that you can't compete. You know, in fact, you know, like I said, the local independents have a real advantage when it comes to trust, to personal service, to community connection, all those sorts of things. So I think that's a real clear thing to take away, not to be scared by this, but to do it, you know, as Bananarama said, to do it right. So, and thirdly, you know, your ads really need to stand out from the big chains, you know, be human, be local, you know, really resonate with the families, because that's what they're after. And finally, you know, every town is different. We showed Leicester and we showed the difference between that and Colchester. You know, it won't be the same in Lincoln and Leeds and Liverpool. So, you know, all the L's. So having a tailored strategy for your area is really important. So I've put in here a little action list of things that you could do as simple takeaways to help you on your way. So firstly, if you're doing Google Ads, look at improving the ad copy. You know, local, trusted, compassionate, not so generic. Make sure that you've got your ad extensions set up. They're free. They give you more space from Google, and make your ad more clickable. Thirdly, identify how you're currently appearing. You know, when people search locally, are you in the ads? And if you're not advertising, that, you know, that is a choice. Are you showing up in the local maps? And if you're not, who is? Who is it that people are seeing when they're turning to Google? Fourthly, check and optimize your Google business profile. One simple step is, you know, like I said, making sure that you've got pictures added and you're updating with you know, with activities. And, you know, perhaps you can just try and task yourself with 5 new reviews from families that you've had in the last period of time. That alone is going to help you with visibility in your area. And finally, you know, if you're keen to stand out and really want to you sort of strive ahead, is please do book a session with us, because we can do this for you in your local town. You know, we're a you know, a trusted partner with SAIF, so we're here to help you. You know, there's no sort of techie jargon or anything like that, just talking in a way that makes sense to you, but specifically to your business. So so hopefully that's helpful. And just, you know, Bananarama, as you've seen from today's session, this statement, you know, is so true. There's opportunity here for your business to turn up on Google a bit more prominently and found by more local people. So it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it that gets results. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today. I know you've given up a lot of your time, and hopefully it's given you a clearer view of what's really, you know, really happening online and what you can do to be found. So you know, if there's one thing to remember, being great at what you do isn't just enough. It's you know, Google, you need to be found on Google as well. So we've looked at Leicester, but do by all means get in contact, and we can do it for your particular town and your particular business. So thank you very much.
Super. Thank you, Laura. That was fantastic. Thank you. There is a question that's come up a couple of times in the chat, is how do I get access to my Google business profile? It's a very good question, actually, I suppose, if you don't use it often. So, I mean, the answer is that there's a Google account associated with your business profile. But I think what we will do is we'll put a guide to that in the SAIF Digital Group on Facebook for everyone, just to give them a little bit of guidance, because I'm fairly sure it's something they want to revisit the next time they want to log in, which would be great. But if anyone has any questions, please do put them into the chat at the bottom. I think that's the most commonly asked one. I think there is one question here from Jane Diamond. So all of this is only relevant if you have Google Ads already. I'll let you answer that one, Laura.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is about if you're doing Google Ads, but if you're not, I hope that you took some of the, you know, the key sort of marketing principles, which is that, you know, you need to think about what makes you different. We need to stand out. We need to be visible by people in the local area. The Google business profile, you don't have to be doing Google advertising to be able to take advantage of that. No. What you can do is you can go and create your own Google business profile, really straightforward. And please, if you haven't got it, but if this is the biggest thing you take from this session, get yourself a Google business profile, message us, we can give you a hand, it's not a problem, but you must do this. This is free. This is where you have the ability to be able to show up in the maps. And it's something that you can do organically. It does take time, but in your business, you can spend a bit of time just populating it with the pictures, with updating comments, with your opening times, you know, those kind of things. And this is free, and it's a really good thing to do. So yes. Yeah. Neil Durrant said, how do you book on your free report? There is a link on the slide, which is YBAPPC.team/SAIF. And I think Angela will send out the slides and the recording, and that link will be on there as well. But yeah, by all means, book in your time and we'll be able to run this report. It'll be like a half-an-hour call with you where we'll run this report for your particular town, show you the advertisers, show you the map listings, and be able to give you a very bespoke bit of insight. There was another question: how much does Google Ads cost? Well, I don't want to be slopey shoulders about this, but it very much depends on your local town. It depends on how many people are searching in that area. I would say anything from £500 upwards. I would say if you're spending less than 500, I would probably stop it, because the average cost per click won't give you enough click spend to be able to get enough people onto your website. So I don't mean that flippantly. I'm not saying spend loads of money, but if you're going to do it, you need to have some budget there. But it does depend on how many people are searching in your local area, and also how competitive it is in that area as well. So it's very bespoke to your area. But I would say anything in the regions of sort of 500 minimum up to maybe £2,000, something like that. But it is all about return on investment. People don't do this if it's not bringing them a return. Super. Oh, Megan's just put it in the chat, the link. Thank you, Megan.
Excellent. Okay, superb. We have just one last question here. So your homepage is vital. I'm just trying to distinguish if they mean their website homepage or are they talking about their Google business profile. I'm assuming they mean their website homepage.
Yeah, I'll answer that on both sides. So, oh, she's just answered it, Jane. Thank you. So your homepage is vital. Absolutely. So, so actually for some clients, we create a landing page, which is where you click on the ad and it takes them to a page on your website that's specific to that kind of person that's looking. So if they're looking for, funeral director Leicester, what we want to do is make sure that the headline is that on the website, on that particular page. It's got a very clear call to action. It's empathetic. It talks through the journey of what's going to happen next. Whereas on the home page, what you might have is lots of different things. You've got frequently asked questions. You've got how to find us. There's lots of ways that would be distracting that person. And I'm talking about Google advertising. When somebody clicks on the ad, comes to the page, we want to take them to a page ideally that's geared for that journey, to gear them through into calling you or filling out a form. Whereas your home page will have lots of different things going on. It's probably got lots of written information, and that serves a great purpose. But for Google Ads, it's more targeted to take them to a page that will take them to a destination that they want, which is the phone call or to fill out a form. Hopefully that answers your question, Jane. Kevin said, "Is that per month?" It is, unfortunately. It is, it is a costly exercise, but it's one of those things where you've got to be in it to win it, and it's one of those things that will bring you those inquiries, and done well, it can bring you that outcome. We talked about John Weir, but also having tracking in place allows you to know, right, I've spent this much money. This is how many phone calls I've got. This is how many form fills I've got. And so you should be able to see those outcomes.
Super. There is a question here. What's the difference between Google Ads and Google Sponsored?
It's the same thing, really. They kind of beta test things, they change things. Sometimes it says sponsored, sometimes it takes away and it's got a green box around it. So they're always testing. They catch my eye at sometimes, and so yeah, they call it different things. There is Google Guarantee, but that's not in this particular sector. That's for self-storage and for funerals and for garden maintenance. There's others, but that's not particularly for your industry here. So Kevin said less than £500 per word. I don't mean to be flippant, but it depends. So if you're concerned about it, we can have a look at it in your local area, but really under £500 a month on the advertising. Yeah, it's a difficult one to get that to work. Yeah.
Super. I think we've covered all the questions. Laura, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for joining us again today. And we look forward to seeing you all on our next webinar or next event. Thank you.
Brilliant. My pleasure. Thanks, Declan.